What's up guys, Will's Garage here. In this video I'm going to be corner balancing and aligning my car in my garage. I originally was going to have a shop do this for me, but since I anticipate having to do this multiple times in the future, I figure I'd invest in the parts and do it myself. In order to do so, you'll need a set of leveling pads to ensure you have a perfectly level surface, which is critical for corner balancing your car. I chose to purchase my leveling pads from Track Rats, which I was really glad to find. The pricing for the pads are literally half of what the big box brands charge, and they're great quality. And the reason why it's so critical for having a perfect level surface is that you're taking weight measurements from each wheel, and if your surface is off even by a little bit, the weight readings will be completely off. Alright guys, so now that I have 4 of the pads set up, next step is going to be pretty tedious. I'm going to have to make sure the pads are completely level, meaning each individual pad is perfectly level to the floor and also level to one another. I'm just going to start off with leveling one pad first. And then as you can see here, my garage floor is really sloped. You can take a look at my shelf right here. I'm not sure you can tell, I think you can, but I'm holding the camera level right now, and you can see the left shelf is much lower than the one on the right. There's supposedly 2 inches of adjustment in the legs of these leveling pads, so hopefully that's enough for me to adjust this without putting any wood underneath the feet to make it higher. Alright, so let's get to adjusting this pad right here first. So for the scales, I picked up a set of 2.5 inch pads, which these leveling pads are designed to work with. And these are the standard thickness. 2.5 inch is the thickness of the scale right here. And these are the cheapest scales that I could find. Well, technically not the cheapest. The cheapest ones I think were made by a company called Proform, but the reviews on there were kind of really mixed. And so I decided I just want to stick with the old school design. And the big box names for these scales is normally Long Anchor or Intercomp. These are made by Speedway Motors, but in actuality I think they are manufactured by Long Anchor, because if you just look at the design, Long Anchor scales have this cut out at the corners. They basically look exactly the same, just rebranded as Speedway, and they're about like $500 cheaper. I'll leave a link in the description below if you guys are interested in checking it out. But yeah, everything is the same except, you know, the wires are purple to match the Speedway Motors logo. It even also says right here, it says computer scales, which I believe is the terminology that Long Anchor uses. Rear right. This fits right through here. Just like that. So after I inserted the scales into the pads, I began leveling the initial pad, and I used the bubble level just to get it perfectly leveled first on both the pad side and the scale side as well. So now that I have it leveled up, I'm just going to go ahead and lock the feet in this position and mark it. Alright, so now that I have my first leveling pad leveled, based on the bubble level that I was using, I'm going to use a laser level to make sure each of the pads are level with one another. I'm going to use this target right here, and this pad right here is perfectly leveled. And I'm going to use this reference points right here, that second notch right below the 2 right here. That's going to indicate that the pads are leveled. As you can see, even if I put it right up close right here, it's going to be the same even if I move it all the way back out here. The same should apply even all the way down to that other pad down there, this pad right here, and this one as well. with leveling the pads. Check it out. All 4 are leveled. As you can see here, I have a laser level from the original pad to the second pad right here, and it's right on target. It should be the same for all 4. Let me move my laser right here. Boom, right on target. Actually, technically should be measuring from here. Right on target, as you can see. This one as well, right on target. So all 4 are perfectly leveled. This took me about, I'd say, a little over an hour to get it right. And I kind of lucked out, you know, considering how sloped my garage is, as you can see from the shelf, as I mentioned earlier. I lucked out because there's about 2 inches of adjustment, and I basically maxed out the feet right here. So from that side all the way to this side, the slope is 2 inches. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick this up, but I just really lucked out. Alright guys, so now that I have the car on the pads, I'm really curious how much it weighs. I have the scale hooked up and everything. I haven't adjusted the height of the car yet. As you can see, the rear is extremely low, but I'm really curious how much it weighs, and I know you guys are extremely curious about that as well, since a lot of you have been asking me, hey, how much has the car weighed ever since you removed the interior parts and everything. I do want to note though that I reinstalled the center console, and as you can see, I replaced the center console lid. And I was interested in getting the GTS style armrest, but I couldn't justify the price of $200+ for like a piece of Alcantara with foam glued to it. So I picked this one up on eBay for about 40 bucks. The Alcantara is not the best quality, but I mean, it looks pretty good in my opinion. And for the rear, I did remove a few more items. I removed the amplifier. I also removed the comm box and the tire inflator, which surprisingly was pretty heavy, and also the carpeting on each of these sides. I'm going to roll it on the scales now and see how much it weighs. Wow guys, so it turned out to be a lot better than expected. The car has a total weight as of right now of 3242. I was expecting it to be in around like the 3300 range, but I'm already in a 3200 range, so I'm really happy about that. I think I can get it below 3200 if I just get a lightweight battery. The lightweight battery should save about 40 pounds, and yeah, if I get a carbon fiber trunk, this piece right here I'm planning to replace also with carbon fiber. I'm not sure how many pounds that's going to save, and maybe carbon fiber hood. So with those changes, I should be able to get below 3200. But yeah, I'm really happy with the weight so far. And now I'm just going to go ahead and adjust the ride height first. Obviously raise this rear because it's extremely low right now. One thing I did notice is that when I left the car up and I lower it back down onto the pad, it kind of shifts the pad out of its original spot, which can throw off the leveling. As you can see, I marked the spot right here, but the foot kind of moved outwards. So I'm going to try to mitigate that with putting some garbage bags on the rear right here. since I don't have any slip plates, just to see if that's going to work. And the idea is that the garbage bag is a slippery surface, and hopefully when the tire comes down, it can just kind of slide its way out without moving the pad. And I started out with attempting to lower the front end a little bit, but... Alright, so it turns out the suspension is pretty much maxed out, or almost maxed out at its lowest position. As you can see, there aren't any more threads left. And the spring is, looks like it's a 6-inch spring. So I guess if I want to lower it more, I'm going to have to get like a 5-inch spring. So since the front end doesn't have any more adjustability, I decided to move to the rear and raise as much as I could because it's really low. But it turns out, even with it maxed out, the rear is still way too low. I thought I could get away with a 7-inch spring, but it turns out looks like I'm going to have to get a longer 8-inch spring. Alright, well, looks like I'm screwed now, and I'm just going to have to order 8-inch springs for the rear, and just going to have to wait for it to come in. It's probably going to take at least a week. Again, as you can see, just how low and how tucked the rear is. It's kind of rubbing in the rear bumper a little bit right here. So I'm going to start the video back up after I get the 8-inch springs.
Much later.
Alright guys, finally my springs have came in. 8-inch, 900-pound springs. Let's put them in. Alright, there we go. Probably needs to settle a little bit, but the gap is much better. Alright, so now that I have the ride height where I want it to be, I can now move on to corner balancing the car. And the goal of corner balancing is to get that diagonal weights even, meaning the right front and left rear corners will carry 50% of the vehicle's weight, and the left front and the right rear corner will carry the other 50%. And you can compare this to an unstable table with uneven legs. Some tables come with legs where you can adjust the leg lengths to make it stable, and this is essentially what we're going to do with the car, except we're going to be adjusting the length of the suspension. And if the cross weight is not 50%, the car will turn one direction better than the other. You're going to want to disconnect your sway bars to ensure it isn't affecting the height with any unwanted preload. And you want to set up the car exactly how it'll be when you drive it on the track. This includes having your own weight in the driver's seat and setting the tire pressures to what it'll be when it's hot on the track. Once your car is on a scale, you'll be able to see what the cross weight is. So if the cross weight is above 50%, the car has a wedge. If it's below 50%, it's considered to have a reverse wedge. So to achieve 50%, you can use the adjustment tips shown on the screen. In my case, my car has a reverse wedge, so I need to increase the height on the right front, left rear, or decrease the height on the left front and right rear. And in my case, the front suspension is already maxed out, so I don't want to touch it anymore. And also, I'm lucky to have the ground control articulating weight jacks, which make adjusting height extremely easy. All you have to do is stick a socket with an extension from beneath the spring to make the adjustment. The only annoying part is after each adjustment, you want to make sure to bounce the car up and down so the suspension is fully settled and roll it back and forth. Alright, so I just made the final adjustments. And the final result here, weight with driver is 3411, cross weight at 50%. So I'm done with the corner weighting. Now I'm going to align the car. But before doing that, don't forget to reattach your sway bar end links. So for the alignment, I'm going to start off with adjusting camber. And to adjust camber, I'm using this tool called Smart Camber. It's a pretty neat tool and simple to use. In my case, since my car is on level ground, I calibrated my tool against a leveled vertical surface. And basically all it does is it measures the tilt. As you can see, I'm measuring the front camber of my car. As right now, it's sitting at negative 2.7 degrees. And if you have camber plates, you probably already know about this. but you'll have to lift both sides of the cars to adjust camber. And with the Vorschlag camber plates, all you have to do is loosen up the top strut nuts, and you'll be able to slide the camber plates to make your camber adjustment. Oh, that's a lot of camber. So, as of right now, the adjustment went from 2.3 to 3.8 negative camber. I was aiming for 3.5. Let me check what it is on the other side. Adjustment was just enough for me to get my desired 3.5 degrees camber. Again, this one is completely maxed out. I guess unless I lower the car a little bit more, 3.5 degrees is the most I'm going to get, and I'm happy with that. Now moving on to the rear, initial camber is at -2 degrees, and my goal is to set it at least at 2.5 degrees. And to adjust camber, there is one nut that you have to loosen up. As you can see here, it's extremely tight, so I had to use a breaker bar. But once you get that nut loosened up, you can turn the bolt on the other side to make your camber adjustment. So I got the bolt loosened up. Now we can adjust the bolt on the other side and make the camber adjustment. So this position looks like it's the max camber position, because you can see from the eccentric bolt, if the bigger side of the eccentric bolt is pointing out, that is the highest camber setting that's possible. So I'm going to go check the camber right now. Alright, so I've achieved 2.5 degrees negative camber in the rear. This is with the stock camber arms. This is the most I can get out of the rear. So I'm going to go back in and lock the bolt up. Alright, so this side I'm able to get a lot more camber. In fact, I think I can max that even more. I could probably get up to -3, but just to match the other side, I'm going to set at 2.5. And what's really nice about this tool is that it's hands-free, so you can just set it on the wheel, as you see right here. And you can see real time here, the camber is being moved while I'm under the car adjusting. Perfect. So now I'm going to lock it down, and we're done with the camber adjustment. Now I'm going to be moving on to adjusting the toe, and in order to do so, I'm going to be using the Smart Strings tool. I'm not going to go into much detail on how to use this tool. If you're interested in learning more on how to use it, check out my other video. I'm going to be leaving a link on the top right hand corner. Alright, so this time I got some green fishing line instead of using the standard white string, just to make it easier to measure. Let's see how it works out. Alright guys, so I have the string set up. It's a perfect square around the car right now, and I just took measurement of the front driver's side wheel. It is slightly towed out right now, so I'm going to bring the front end in a little bit to set toe to 0. which is what I want it to be. All right, so adjusting the front toe is pretty easy. You have the tie rod right here, which extends in and out by the threading right here. So you can adjust the toe in or toe out, and it's locked in with this bolt right here. So I'm going to loosen this up first. So I'm pretty tight. So I'm using a breaker bar, as you can see. Alright, let's get this loose. And now that we got this loose, we should be able to adjust the tie rod now. Turn this baby. Alright. That should be enough. Let me go measure it. Alright, so I just measured it. I still need to bring it in a tad bit more. Maybe 2 more turns. Alright. Now I'm aiming for 0 toe. So that means the measurement in the back and the front part of the wheel should be exactly the same. And it is exactly the same now. So I'm going to go ahead and lock down the bolt. Alright, so now that I'm done with the front adjustment, we're going to move on to the rear. And I just measured this one out, and it is slightly toed in too much. The rear, I want a little bit of toe in. So I'm going to set it at 1/16 toe in on each side. Alright, so we are in the rear section right now, the rear left driver's side specifically. So earlier you saw me adjust the camber, which is the bolt down here. To adjust the toe, you're going to have to loosen this nut up here, and this will adjust the toe. So this is an 18mm nut, and you can hold it with a 10mm socket in the back. So let's break this thing loose right now. Here's a close-up of what the eccentric bolt looks like. Once you loosen up the nut, you can make the adjustments from the rear. You can see, you move it around, it's going to move the eccentric bolt to push or pull the arm back in. Okay, so for the toe adjustment, I'm finding out that this is extremely finicky because I want to get it down to a 1/16, which is very, very fine adjustment. And I'm finding it very difficult, which I can see why people buy aftermarket toe arms now. I always wondered, why is it necessary? But in this case, if I had an aftermarket toe adjustment arm, it would make it so much easier. So perfectly sitting at a 1/16 toe in, and I'll lock this down. I'm going to use a breaker bar. This might be a little overkill, but I want to make sure it's locked down and that's not going to budge when I hit a pothole or anything. That should do it. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I am super excited to test out the JRZ suspension on this car. So stay tuned for more on my thoughts on it. And hopefully I'll be able to hit the track soon. Peace.